Hi, hello, welcome back. Today I'm so excited to be here because it is the release day of Funny Story by Emily Henry, and I just picked it up. Actually, a little funny tangent story. I went to Target first because I had to buy other things there anyways. And I went into the book section, looked around, couldn't find Funny Story at all. They had all of her other books except Funny Story. So Target was a flop, it was a bust, it was a fail. I ended up going to Barnes & Noble because it was on the way anyways. And of course, Barnes & Noble never fails me because they had Funny Story and they had it right in the front, of course. But so excited to read this novel. It was my most anticipated release of 2024. I love Emily Henry. I love everything that she puts out. She's one of my favorite authors of all time. So that brings on to today's video, which I'm going to do a reading vlog of Funny Story. I honestly don't know and or remember what the premise of this book is about. I think I read the premise a really long time ago when this book was first announced. And then so much time has passed since then, I don't remember. So I'm going into this a little bit more blind, but I like it that way because I feel like it just helps with the overall reading experience, and also just helps me to not have that many expectations about what the story should be based on the premise of the book. And I couldn't contain myself. I actually read the first chapter already, where we find that this story is going to follow the main character Daphne, and she kind of just explains how she ended up in her current situation, which she's currently living with. She currently just moved into another apartment, which now she has a roommate named Miles, and Miles' girlfriend just moved out of the apartment and into the apartment of Daphne's fiance. So obviously, Daphne and her fiance Peter are no longer together, and then Miles and his girlfriend, which is now Peter's partner. I don't know why that was so hard to explain. That's basically all I know based on the first chapter, besides that Daphne is a librarian, she's a reader, and she likes to keep things neat and tidy, which honestly is pretty relatable. So now she just feels a little bit lost in life, a little bit stuck in her current situation, and she can't wait to get out of it. But with that being said, I'm going to continue on reading, and I'll check back in if I have something more to say about it. Hello, it's the next day. So I actually read just a little bit over half the book last night, and I have some thoughts. I also took the dust jacket off while reading because I don't want to ruin it. It's so pretty. But anyways, now on to my thoughts. And both Daphne and Miles are pretty sad given the rather sudden breakups by both of their partners. They don't really hang out with each other or interact that much until they both get separate invitations to Peter and Petra's wedding, which is going to take place that upcoming Labor Day weekend. Which, side note, having a wedding on Labor Day weekend is honestly kind of rude. It's one of the few holidays that working people get off and they have to spend it for your wedding. No. After a night out at a local bar between Miles and Daphne, which results in some general drunken chaos, Daphne accepts the wedding invite to Peter and Petra's wedding. And while Peter, because Peter being Peter, he cannot leave Daphne alone, he calls Daphne the next day after he sees her RSVP, and tries to convince her to not really go because she'll just be so lonely and alone and sad and single at his wedding, and he doesn't want to do that to her. So in order to kind of get back at Peter, Daphne lies and says she's actually bringing her boyfriend, and her boyfriend is Miles. So now there's forced proximity, fake dating, which, as we all know, is the perfect breeding ground of a good romance. One of the many things that I like about Emily Henry novels is just that she explores so many different topics and concepts that are beyond the romance itself. Them being is that after the breakup, Daphne begins to realize how her life wasn't really her life. It was just herself trying to fit into Peter's life, whether it be trying to be friends with his friends, or moving to Michigan with him, or moving into his house, or trying to live in his lifestyle. And as a result of doing this, she really lost her sense of individuality, and she's struggling to find herself as a person. But of course, there is romance in this book, and the romance is just so good. I have tabbed so many moments of it because it just makes me feel so many different things. Also, I feel like this is Emily Henry's spiciest book yet. Maybe I'm misremembering because it's been a while since I've read some of her other books, but I feel like it just happened so fast. Not that I'm necessarily complaining, I was just kind of surprised by it. Also, the MMC in this book, Miles, he's just such a sweet and nice guy, and he doesn't have like the nice guy complex at all. He's just a genuinely nice person. Also, I totally relate to Daphne as she watches Miles make friends with strangers literally everywhere they go. And meanwhile, she's just like sitting in the corner overthinking and overanalyzing her interactions with new people, and just not wanting to reveal too many details about herself to new people in the fear that that person will prove themselves to be untrustworthy and just leave. But anyways, those are my initial thoughts. I'm gonna get back into reading. I really think I'm gonna finish the rest of the book today. On page 220, and there's only 384 pages of this book, so I'm confident I will finish it. It's actually the next day now. I finished Funny Story the other day, and I just wanted some time to sit on my thoughts before I jumped on here and gave my final update slash final review of this book. I finished the last 200 pages of this book yesterday, and I will say the last like third of this book just made me cry off and on, which is also another reason why I didn't want to film myself right away, because all that crying gave me a headache. But besides the headache, I really did enjoy this book. One thing that I love about Emily Henry novels, and I'm sure I've talked about this before, but yes, they're contemporary romances, but I feel like Emily Henry discusses so much more than just the romance itself. I feel like in her other books, a lot of the topics or frequent topics are around friendship, especially female friendships, and just relationships that you have with family members. And definitely both of those topics find themselves in Funny Story. I feel like Emily Henry handles both of those topics so well, and they're so thought out and articulated in a way that makes sense but is also insightful, which is kind of weird to say for a romance novel. But of course, it is a romance novel, and the romance in this book was really good. I enjoyed the relationship between the FMC Daphne and the MMC Miles, I thought they were just so cute together, and anytime Emily Henry would write about just their relationship and love for each other, it was just so heartwarming and just made me feel a lot of warm and gushy feelings. I ended up giving this book a 5 stars, and I kind of knew right off the bat starting it that it was probably going to be a 5-star, but really solidified that rating for me personally was just the connection that I had to Daphne. Hello. Hi. Meow. But anyways, what solidified my 5-star rating for this book was the connection that I had with Daphne, especially around the relationships that she had with each one of her parents, which did make me cry a lot. That's why I cried like the last third of this book. But I felt like Emily Henry just handled the topic of complicated relationships that you have with a family member just so well, and it just made me feel so many things, and I felt like it was just very insightful too. But if you have the chance to pick up this book, or if you're in a position that you are able to pick up this book, then I recommend it. I really loved it. But also, if you can't pick up this book, I do recommend any other Emily Henry novels too. I feel like some of her older ones are a little bit more accessible, especially at the library, depending on where you live. But anyways, I just love Emily Henry so much. I will read anything that she puts out. I'm her biggest fan. But if you made it this far, I would love to know if you read Funny Story, or if you're planning on reading Funny Story, or if you read any other Emily Henry novels. I would love to know.